Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Eddie Brill, the co-host of OG Talk NYC, with my co-host Vlad Grinberg, the owner of the Organic Grill, thus the OG.
Hey everyone.
Hey Vlad, and we've been we've been all behind closed doors now, and this pandemic has stopped us from being in the restaurant and recording our OG Talk. So we've created OG Chat, and it's called Behind Closed Doors. And we're very excited for our guest today, who is the rhythm guitar and the lead vocalist for Machine Head. And we're very happy to have on the show Robb Flynn. Robb, welcome.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. You know, I got dressed up and shaved for this, and I thought everyone was going to shave, but
You got out of your sweats and your pajamas.
and put on another sweatshirt and shorts. So, you know, and I have hospital socks on.
You didn't need to shave for me. You didn't need to shave for me.
Yeah, I really didn't. But Vlad gets mad at me when I don't shave because I look, I gray hair, you know. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I know. I saw a great video.
My wife held up a like one of those Brillo pads to my beard the other day. She's like, "This looks way too close to a Brillo pad now."
Well, the good news is if you run out of soap pads during, during the pandemic, you can always use your beard.
And you can always follow a suggestion of a president about disinfectants. That's like a miracle. Doing miracle for other
light
people.
up my ass.
Yeah, you light up my ass. That was a big hit back in the 70s. I saw, just to start off, I saw an incredible video of you and your son, and he's playing like a bass kind of thing. You guys are
Cello,
recording
yeah.
together. It's cello. Just show. I played clarinet, so I didn't know the cello section. I thought that was terrific. Have you been doing a lot of online recording and online playing since this whole pandemic is?
I have. In fact, once a week, I take over either the Machine Head Instagram or the Machine Head Facebook, and I just go live and I do an acoustic show. It's called the Robb Flynn Acoustic Happy Hour, and you tune in. I drink beer. We drink. People do whatever they do, and I just play acoustic songs for. The last one that I did about an hour and 50 minutes. So I'm doing a lot of songs and just I'm taking requests and. Sometimes they'll throw something at me that, like a Machine Head song that I haven't played in 20 years or something. And so I got to scratch my brain. Okay, I think I remember this. The words are coming back, and I'll just do it.
That's great.
Sometimes it's a train wreck. Sometimes it turns out awesome, and like every word comes back to me, and I remember it, which is crazy. And but they're fun. They've been really cool, and it's a great way to stay connected with the fans.
And your kid must enjoy it. Be thrilled to be part of that. Has he been a musician since he was born, kind of thing?
Nah, it's funny because neither of them really took to it early on, and then just in the last 4 years, he's really gone crazy into the cello. Like he just loves it. He'll play it all day. We don't even got to ask him to play it. He'll just jump on and play for hours and just get lost in the music and playing the cello, and it's really, really cool.
I was really enjoying watching him while you were playing. He was getting ready. He was actually doing the fingers. He was checking out his fingering to get ready to come in. The passion behind your son just made me realize this kid's going to be, an incredible musician, or probably is already. He must be proud.
I'm really curious.
It's fun playing with him too, because you're like, we can kind of. He teaches me some songs. I'll show him some songs. And then we'll jam. Like he was like, Dad, I want to learn the Trooper by Iron Maiden. Like,
yeah. That's wonderful. Glad you were going to say something.
I'm really curious if you picked up any points from being a heavy metal guy. Like he's going through such a difficult age. I can only imagine. Like, did you get any credits for being a metalhead, being cool dad? Was this or no?
It's funny because I'm just dad to him. Like I'm not cool because I'm in Machine Head. I mean, he knows like I'm, famous or whatever. And so I'm just dad. And, he's just like, we always joke about my, weirdo beardo because I got the big beard and, like I wear nail polish. So like he's just like, you're a weirdo. And I was just like, that's right. Don't forget it. You know?
Yeah,
I was
when
like,
I
and
was
that's
little, they
good.
would say your
And I
mother
think, and I
wears
was like,
arm.
I try and teach them that's good. It's like, it's okay to be weird, you know, like there's nothing wrong with, you know, looking different or wanting to express yourself in whatever way society says you need to do it. So,
Yeah, and that makes all the difference in the world. You know, you get lucky if you have parents who let you be yourself and not try to make you be somebody who you're not. And you know, well, how come you're not like this person, or how come, you know, fall in line? But obviously, your son knows the difference. You've given him that freedom.
yeah. I mean, my other son, my oldest son's really into hip hop. So I'm just, you know, I have no, you know, I introduced him to metal. I introduced both of them to metal, introduced both of them to tons of music, hip hop and pop and everything in between. But he just really gravitated towards that. And so it's just like, all right, you know, so we just talk about like some of the stuff we don't necessarily want him listening to because it's just so much like, you know, drugs and guns and pussy and pills and you
Yeah.
know, so we're like, you know, some of them were just like, hey, you know, wait a year or two to listen to those guys, you know. So
Did you listen to
the other
that
guys,
stuff when you were was his age?
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, so don't be
Yeah,
like that. You know.
yeah, but you know, but I mean, like we still let them listen to it. Like my parents were pretty strict when I was growing up. Like I was able to listen to, I could listen to the Happy Beatles, but I couldn't listen to the druggy hippie Beatles. You know, so when I finally discovered, you know, the Sergeant Pepper era, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is crazy. Like, what the fuck is
Right.
this? And it just made it, you know, it made it that much more, because it was taboo, it made me that much more attracted to it. And so I don't want to do that with him. Like, I'm just like, look, you can listen to whatever. You know, we're just asking you, like, this is just a little too crazy. You know, I think some of it's going over his head anyway, but, you know, just like, hey,
Yeah,
this is
Vlad, this is
okay.
your favorite kind of music. Well, when you were growing up, what was it like musically in your house and growing up? Parents strict about music? Did they turn you on to any of that?
uh, Honestly, like I know Rob is big fan of Black Sabbath, and I was into this like from the beginning, and it was such a different what my parents were listening and what I was listening. But I wasn't a musician, so it was just something that I could take my mind off my things that bothered me as a teenager, and I just could listen to this for years. And I remembered, I even told you before we started today, I saw um, Rob on a stage when his friends were playing from Hatebreed, and this guy knows every song of his friends, and he was headbanging and enjoying it probably as much as everybody else
Oh,
standing right
oh, with
next
the
to
New
him.
York show?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show. I knew so many you know, every band I'm friends with and every band I love. So that was an awesome night, man. I had so much fun that night.
And I really appreciate, like, with your obviously being one of the uh, from from uh, from metal, you knew hardcore music of Terror, from Crown Max and other bands, and you really, like, I spoke to people from Madball, and they told me that when you just started, you played Chromax songs on your concerts
Yeah,
at the end.
totally. Yeah.
What was your little kid set list like when you had your own kind of, you can buy your own records and stuff? What was your favorites?
You know, I mean, like I said, my parents didn't listen to rock music at all. So the music that I grew up with was R&B, like old R&B, like Chaka Khan and Earth, Wind and Fire and the Commodores and like kind of funk R&B type stuff, and then disco, you know, stuff like that. So that was really all I listened. And then like kind of pop music of the day, you know, Jim Croce and stuff like that. So like folk artists. And so, you know, I wasn't really turned on to rock music till I was about in fifth grade, and I had a friend named Lisa Scro, and she turned me on to Van Halen, AC/DC, and Devo all in the same day, and Duran Duran, and I was like, what the fuck is, like, where is all this music been? Like, I've never heard of any of this stuff, and I went deep dive, went way into it, and it was right until to this day I still love all of those bands, and that was kind of my introduction, and then Black Sabbath came along, And then, I was growing up in the Bay Area, and as a teenager, it was just at the very, very beginning of the thrash metal movement. Metallica, and the first time I saw Metallica, they were supporting Raven at the Berkeley Keystone in front of 250 people. So I got to see like the very, like the inception of this movement. And we had already been listening to the music, and I finally talked my dad into taking us to drive us to the show. And
How old were you then?
I was 16. And so it was just this perfect time. And just, I was crazy about, from that point on, it was Exodus and Metallica and Slayer and just all these thrash bands that nobody knew about. And so it felt like it was mine. Like it was just me and my friend in this little world of this music, and like nobody else knew about it. And it was really cool because no one else knew about it. And so we just started going to shows, and then we formed a band, and we're like, we got to play fast, and we got to play heavy, and we got to be like these guys. And so that's what we started doing. We started playing backyard parties. I was living in Fremont at the time, which was this enormous suburb in the Bay Area. It's like it's actually the biggest city in the Bay Area. And it's just a giant suburb where kids can get into way too much trouble. And so we started playing shows in people's backyards. Like we'd have kegger parties from like our high school friends, and we'd be playing Black Magic by Slayer and A Lesson in Violence by Exodus, and Whiplash, and just throwing in our originals here and there. And we made this little scene, in Fremont, and we got good just kind of playing backyards and church halls and 4-H clubs, and just stuff like that. And so
yeah, no. So you're not originally from Oakland. You're from Fremont. You lived in Fremont.
I was born and raised in Oakland, and then my family moved to San Lorenzo, where I kind of went. That's where I went to school. And then by the time I was in high school, I was in Fremont.
Because Oakland is, quite a city with, quite a history in music. And I'm thinking that during that time, you probably were in between music, in between eras of music. It was because you started the band in '91. Right. Yeah. So what kind of music did you play before '91? What kind of bands were you in before that?
I was in a couple of thrash bands. I was in a thrash band called Forbidden, and another thrash band called Violence. And so it was just thrash. I mean, we were playing, especially Violence definitely fell somewhere between like punk rock and thrash metal, like more on the hardcore side. Like we would play with GBH, The Accused, Suicidal Tendencies, and then we'd play with Testament and Exodus and bands like that. So, we were kind of we could stand our own ground in either of those scenes, and I was really into the hardcore and the punk rock scene.
So it gave you confidence. You had some original songs as well, right? So that probably also was kind of fun to get a response that way.
Yeah. Well, confidence. It gave you confidence because the scene back then was so violent, and if they didn't like you, I mean, like they'd just jump up and beat you up. You know what I mean? Like for real. Like they would just jump. They would climb up on the stage, and like, I mean, I literally watched thrash shows where a band was playing, and like dudes in the crowd would just literally walk up and just unplug amps and like throw shit down, like get off the stage. It was, it was like the Blues Brothers scene where you had the chicken wire and like, they just throw bottles, it was crazy.
Yeah. As a comedian, I've gotten bottles thrown at me too. I know it well. But
so once you get past that, once you like get good at that, like, oh, okay, well, they're not unplugging us. Okay, this is cool.
But there has to be some anxiety beforehand, are they going to, is it going to work? And then you get that confidence. That's where I was going with that.
Right.
You build that confidence. Vlad, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was wondering, like growing up, you had a turbulent childhood, and you say that your parents were strict, but at the same time, your father took you to the concert. So, and I know that he took you to singing lessons. So was he supportive of you or not?
I mean, he didn't take me to singing lessons, but he would take us to the concerts. He would take us, he would drive us and pick us up, which was cool. And he was definitely more supportive than my mom was. Like, he would make a deal with me for everything. You know, like it would be like, look, if like I would be like, hey, I want to play guitar, 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 and he'd be like, all right, listen, I'll rent you a guitar for 3 months, and it was $45 to rent a guitar. You know, so $45 rent a guitar for 3 months. Comes with an amp about this big, about 4 inches tall and 4 inches wide, and if you stick with it, then I'll rent it for another 3 months. But I'm not going to buy you a guitar. I'm not going to, you know, like I'm not going to go down like this route with you until I know that this is something that you're interested in. And so he did, and I just went full bore. I loved it, and you know, I just played it forever and ever and ever. You could see it, and you know, they didn't really get it, you know. And at that time, I was becoming a teenager, and I'm like very like, you know, combative, and I'm, you know, kind of just smoking weed and drinking and getting into trouble. And so it was very. And then you know, I tell them that I want to be in a band, and they're just like, wait, a thrash? Like a what? A thrash? What's thrash metal? And to them, it just sounded like the craziest thing. I mean, even for the longest time, even after Machine Head was wildly successful, I would still go to Christmas dinner with my grandma and my mom, and they'd be like, I hear garbage men make a lot of money. They're hiring at the post office. And I'm just like, dude, like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, they just didn't, you know, if it wasn't me, if I wasn't the Beach Boys, it wasn't successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it had to be that complete out of the stratosphere.
But if you were the Beach Boys, your father would have kicked your ass every day, and that would have been another freaky, weird thing.
Yeah, and then stole all my money. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So in a way, you don't want to be the Beach Boys.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But you know that you were in California during that era. So yeah. So I'm guessing that you had friends that were the original band. How did that come about to get your original band together? Who were these friends? Who were these?
For Machine Head or for the
Yeah,
first
for
two?
Machine Head.
Okay. You know, a lot of it was just I quit my one band. I quit Violence, and I knew I wanted to start Machine Head. I had already started writing songs. I already had the name in my head. I had already started drawing the logo. And
Why'd you quit Violence? Was there a reason behind it, or?
It had kind of run its course, like thrash metal. Like, we kind of came at the last. We were the third wave of thrash. You know, the first wave was like Metallica, Exodus, Megadeth, whatever, Slayer. And then the second wave was like Death Angel, Testament. And then the third wave was like Forbidden, Violence, you know, kind of some of those later day bands.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time our second record came around, like everything was already changing. You know, like Metallica was already on the Black Album. Like it was just, everything was changing. And so it just kind of ran its course. And so I left. And I knew I wanted to start the band. I knew I wanted to be the leader of the band, and I knew I kind of had a whole vision of what I wanted to do. So I trademarked the name Machine Head, actually, and the logo too.
And how'd that come about? How'd the name come about?
Just nothing, you know. It just sounded
You like
heavy,
the name?
and I was writing heavy shit. It sounded heavy, so I was like, cool, sounds heavy.
Yeah, it does.
And then, but basically the guys that I started getting were my roommates or guys who lived in my apartment complex, and you know, it was just kind of happened like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting thing is you get a band, and then you get it together, and everyone's going fine, and then there's Pete Best in the band, and then you know you got to kick him out because Ringo is going to be the drummer. Did you run into any of that at the beginning, where you had to move guys in and out till you
we had a Pete Best.
Right.
His name was Tony Costanza.
Great name.
We wrote like half the record with him. Played a few shows, and then just you know, we had our other drummer Chris Contos came along, and he was just vastly superior drummer, big character, and so we ended up getting him, and it was the right choice. You know, like it made it kind of change the band into, you know, a machine.
Yeah, there you go. There's the head of the Machine Head. Did you get management and agencies interested early, or did you have to slog for a year or two?
No, I had a manager pretty early on. Yeah, I mean, we've had the same manager since day one. His name's Joseph Houston, and we fired him for a little while in the 2000s there, but we got back together.
Yeah, well, that's good.
He's basically we've had the same manager since literally day one, since our earliest shows, and you know, he's a big believer in the band and just believer in me, and so it's awesome to have that same team. You know, even if a band member changes, you still got that same team of people that kind of steer the ship.
And you stick with them, obviously. Glad you look like you were going to say something.
No, I was. I'm watching a lot of your videos and always interested about your thought process when you work on music. What usually come in first, poetry, lyrics, or melody?
I would say most of the time it's riffs. Like the riffs will come first. The music starts to take shape, and then I'll kind of freestyle lyrical concepts over the music. And you know, sometimes it clicks super fast. Like sometimes it's exactly what I want comes out, and then other times it just takes months, and I just go through 5, 6, 7 different concepts of lyrics. You know, where I make a concept, write it all out. Okay, this sucks, throw it away. Write a new one. Okay, this sucks, throw it away. And then finally, like you just kind of know. I just kind of know when it works. You know, like it works.
I
Did
want
you
to.
have someone to do feedback with? Someone who's, you know, who knew
Yeah.
you
Oh
well
yeah.
enough?
I'll bounce it off of all the guys. Yeah, for sure.
I want to encourage everyone to look at some of the videos that Rob posts, and he's just posts like a small thing that he think about 6 months, and then all of a sudden you see it's growing, 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 and it's full-fledged song, and he puts it in a progressive evolution of how it goes. Amazing.
Yeah, it's trippy to watch though. It's trippy to even watch those for me too, because you forget about all the dumb ideas that you tried, you know, like 3 months before or 4 months before. And then you're like, oh yeah, you know, like, why did you think that was a good idea? But it's great. Like that's part of the creative process.
Yeah,
You know,
that's how you
that's what,
evolved.
yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes I remember a couple times where we have a famous song called The Video, and it's one of our most famous songs from the first album. And the big hook of the song is "Let Freedom Ring" with a shotgun blast. And, you know, that's a big standalone vocal part. And the first time that we played it at a show. We had a warehouse party. Our friend was graduating or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was a kegger party. Everybody's getting hammered and drinking, and we had this new song. And I only had 3 lyrics, but I was like, you know, let's just play it because it's a cool song, and I'll just say the same things over. And you know, we're playing a fucking warehouse, so who cares? You know, like we're literally playing in the parking lot of a warehouse. So like, if I screw it up, if the lyrics, who cares? And so I remember I got to it, and the original lyric that I had was "Get the fuck up to the bone breaking groove" instead of "Let freedom ring with a shotgun blast." And for some reason at the time, I thought that was a great lyric. I was like, yeah, get the fuck up.
It is a
So I was
great.
like, I'm getting ready, and I'm like looking at the crowd, and I'm like, oh, the fucking crowd's gonna love this. And I fucking say it, and I look at the crowd, and nobody does. Like everybody just kind of like looks around. I'm like, and at that exact moment, I was like, oh no, this is going. Like, I've got to fucking, this is getting thrown away immediately. This is like, what the fuck was I thinking? You know, like, but it was that kind of instant feedback in that, you know, like you just had to say it and try it. And like, no, that's horrible. Like, that's fucking
Have you done that? Have you changed lyrics on songs through the being on stage and going, you know what, I got a better idea for this, you know, chorus part or this thing? Does that happen to you?
Certainly in the past, before we were signed, you know, it seems like once we got signed, the label didn't ever want us to play the new songs live. And so that kind of went away. And I do miss that, you know, like I really miss that because, you know, I think now if we played 10 new songs live, you know, it'd just be all over the internet and it'd make this big stink. And then, you know, if I change anything, I mean, it might be worth trying going forward, but at least back in the day we didn't do it. And now because like when we like now playing live is like a tour, you know, for us. Like we go on tour and then we tour for 16 months and then we get off and it's just like, okay, we're not going to tour anymore. We're not going to do any live shows. We're just going to write. And so that process isn't really the same anymore. Before, back in the day, it was, all right, we're playing one show every 3 weeks somewhere in the Bay Area, maybe down in LA, and that's it. You know, like that's all we did. You know, so
Yeah. So now you're blogging a lot. Vlad was telling me about the blog. How did that start? And you must be enjoying it because you're doing, you know, a lot of it.
I've had a blog now for about 20 years called the General Journals, and
Early blogmeister.
Right. It wasn't called a blog when I started. That's all.
Right.
Yeah, it used to just be called a diary. And so,
Right.
now it became a blog. And I'm like, all right, blog. But,
What was the first
I,
one? What were the first machinations of it? What were you writing at the beginning in your journal?
the first ones. So when I started really doing them, I've always kept a diary of like in the early days of Machine Head. I've got a show. I gave my own show review for every show, like every single show that we did for like the first 30 or 40 shows. And so I wrote, if we played good, if we played bad, if the crowd sucked, if the crowd was awesome, fights happen. Back then, a lot of fights happened. So I'd always like document the fights.
Yeah.
Like, that's all. People just came to Machine Head shows and fought for an hour. That's what they did. It was a crazy time. And that was the people we were hanging out with. And so, like we ended up getting banned from like 3 venues in the Bay Area because we were just assholes and caused trouble like every time we just get in huge fights. And so, I'd write about stuff like that, and then some of the magazines once the records came out and we started touring a lot, they were like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing it?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, so I'll write a diary, like a tour diary." And that evolved into kind of an update on the band diary. And then, so basically at first I was just kind of writing it. And then somewhere along the line, we were unsigned and Machine Head wasn't cool to the press. And so we weren't getting coverage. And this is kind of before the internet had really taken off. This is before Facebook and MySpace and all this stuff. And so, the internet was really in its infancy and we had message boards. And so like everybody communicated on message boards. And so I started giving our fans updates about what the band was doing because we couldn't get coverage in the magazines. And in a lot of ways, like immediately I saw the benefit of it because all of these fledgling, this is Blabbermouth was in its infancy. All of these, all of these webzines were just in their infancy, so they'd pick it up, and so the story would get out there, and I was like, oh wow, this is a pretty powerful tool, and I can kind of, we can say from art, it's not like a magazine that has an agenda that's trying to paint the band in a certain way. This is just from the band member right to the fan, and I was like, fuck, this is cool, and so I started doing a lot of it like that, and just I saw, then we started doing video diaries. This is kind of an update of where we are. And then those started getting picked up, and it became this amazing way to stay in direct contact with the fans. And, for me, it was like, this is fucking, this is the future here.
That's great. And then you got a fan base. The people are now tuning into it, and, thousands and thousands of people are waiting for your next blog. So now there's pressure on you. And I'm sure you probably just go in there and say, fuck it.
Yeah, to me, it's just like a creative. I'd write, and the blogs are about whatever, like they could be about me jerking off 3 times in one day, or they could
now
be
that
about politics or whatever, whatever.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Jerking off politics. It's it's all the same, Yeah, it's interesting because nowadays, well, first of all, I'll back it up a little bit. I was going to ask something else, but the band starts doing well and you're getting famous. What kind of a change was that for you as a human going into this play? I'm sure it's fun. Was there any negative emotions? Was it all positive? When you started becoming famous, when everyone was like, oh, I know that guy. I know his name. I know I'm singing along the lyrics of the music. What was that like for you?
I mean, the fan reaction, I mean, that part was amazing. Like just having people love your music and having people connect with what you're singing about and what you're saying. And, that was that's what you dream of, right?
Right.
That's the stuff that's why you get hooked on this crazy high you get from playing live and writing songs and a connection that you make with people through, this shared humanity or whatever. We did blow up, especially overseas. We blew up really fast. I mean, it was really, really fast. And, I think the speed of the fame was hard to deal with. We weren't really ready for, we were still a bunch of fucking Oakland dudes running around the street fighting people. And, you know, now we got a bunch of people who love us and then a bunch of people who hate us and want to fight us all the time just because, like, you know, supposedly we fight all the time. I'm like, wait, like,
Right.
I don't, like, I don't want to do it. Like, I'm just here having a good time. Like, this, so, you know, you had that, um, you know, I think that it was like, I think when you had, you know, there's a saying that once you get famous, you got 18 months to be an asshole. You get, you know, that's it. You got 18 months. You can act like an asshole for 18 months. And then after the 18 months, like, you got to, like, you know, just pull it together. And I can say that first 18 months, I definitely fulfilled,
Good.
I fulfilled my obligation to be an asshole. And, you know, and it was just hard because, like, you know, like, we'd be on tour and you'd wake up and every day we'd wake up from the bus and all I want to do is go into the venue and take a shit. I'm literally just climbing out of my bed and I'm opening my bedroom door, which is my bus.
Right.
And there's 50 people out there who want autographs. And I'm just like, you know, hold on. Like, I don't, you know,
Yeah.
hungover, like, I was, you know, but I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't, like, I was like, fuck you guys. Like, I got to take
Yeah.
a shit.
Yeah.
And,
And they were like, yeah, he's taking a shit. Yeah.
no, they were like, oh my God, fucking rock star douchebag. Like, and I was like,
Oh.
no, like, I'm not trying to be a douche. I gotta take a shit. I just woke up. At the time, I didn't know how to express that in a way that was, uh, you know, nice. And so my go-to reaction was fuck you.
Right.
And so just, I think that, like, that kind of stuff just wore on you. You know, it was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of people talking to you. It was a lot of people blowing smoke up your ass. Your whole life was suddenly, every single thing that you do is in public, and every move you make and thing you say is analyzed. And it was just, it was a bit of a mind fuck. You know, like, it was a bit of a mind fuck to deal with that, and then the band internally to deal with that. And so, you know, there's no rule book. Nobody prepares you for it. And if you do, it's not like it makes sense until you live it. And then you lived it. And then, you know, you
18
realize
months
you
go
gotta do
by.
things. What's that?
And 18 months go by, and now you got to put another album out.
Exactly. Totally.
Was there a difference between American and European audiences for you guys?
Sure. Yeah.
What was the big difference? I know a lot of people say there has been. Same thing for comedy, same thing for rock and roll. It's a very different, you know, like, look at the history of the blues in America. You know, nobody knew about it until the British guys started singing it.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect analogy right there. It was like that. And so, you know, we did good over here. I mean, we did, you know, we did about what I expected we'd do in America. You know, I never expected us to have this crazy, like, success out there. I mean, it was just what happened over there in Europe was just a phenomenon. You know, it was crazy, like, you know, 500,000 records and just a handful of months, and, you know, just out the gate debut album. And, you know, so prior to the record being released, you know, in my mind, success was if we sold 20,000 records worldwide, if we got to open the one Slayer show at the Henry J. Kaiser in Oakland, we were the kings. Like, that was it. Like, it was like, fucking, we are the fucking kings. And so, pretty, you know, reasonable expectations. And we ended up opening for Slayer all throughout Europe. We ended up opening for Slayer all throughout the U.S. We sold 500,000 records. You know, like, we came back right after the Slayer tour over there and headlined the same exact venues we had just played with Slayer, which is fucking nuts.
yeah,
And so, and over here it was slower. You know, over here our headline tour, you know, we averaged about 150 people. You know, there was several nights where we just drew 35 people, and, you know, so in some ways that kind of dramatic success overseas, but then come back to this other reality here in your home country was a nice way to stay humble and kind of ground yourself and be like, yeah, just remember that you only wanted to sell 20,000 records to begin with. You're already at 500,000. Like, just, you know, be stoked about that. And then, you know, eventually it balanced out over the years. And we've been doing this for over 25 years now. So 25 years later, it's balanced out a lot.
Did you get to see a lot of Europe, or were you in buses, waking up, taking a shit, doing a rehearsal, and then going back to bed, or did you actually get to see Europe? Some people just, they're on tour and it's just there's no time to go to the Louvre.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, most show days, you're just seeing the inside of the venue. You're seeing the inside of a dressing room, no matter what city you're in. And that's a shame sometimes. And especially early on, I was oftentimes too hungover to go trip around the city. And I learned real quick that I was like, you know what? Like, I might never ever be here again. No, this is such a luxury that I'm getting to live, and I need to not be a fucking complete dick and blow this chance. I basically got, a free trip to Europe. Like, go be a fucking tourist and go see around and go see the beautiful and eat the food and partake in the culture and enjoy it, because this may not ever happen again. You may not get another chance to come back here. You may put a record out that everybody hates and never have this opportunity ever again, because it goes by that quick. Life goes by, people's musical tastes change, the music community is fickle. And so, I really then changed it to make the effort that, like, I'm always on a day off. I always walk around the city, no matter where I am. Like, I always want to just go explore and get lost and see what's out there.
Now, you met Vlad through food, because he told me the story where he brought food to the concert where he met you. So Vlad, take over. Talk about we were talking about the food, that you're not a vegan, we're a vegan community, but we're not, extremists or anything. A lot of our guests aren't vegan. Vlad, tell us about when you first met Robb.
Oh, for me, I always, in my own head, I always called him like the most honest guy in metal, because a lot of metal people like having persona about them and trying to support this macho image. And I always like wondered, because you're open about a lot of things, like on your blog, on your posts, you're very honest about your tribulation in a family when you going on a tour, and you like a hero, you're coming back and you're being handed your kids, like, because your wife is going crazy.
And my wife is going, and you're changing all the diapers for the next month.
So I always wondered, like, is it your true persona that you're so open, or you just had to cultivate it within yourself to be a better person? I know you went through therapy for many years and it helped you a lot. Like, was it something that you naturally felt doing, or you understood that it's a growing matter for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, looking back, I feel like I kind of created a persona. You know what I mean? Like, I created this, and granted, we were living that persona. Like, we were running around the streets, dealing drugs and fucking dating a million strippers, and we were fucking out of our minds, like on drugs and booze and fighting all the time. And so, it was authentic what we were projecting, but I think we kind of over exaggerated it. And, I guess that's what we felt we needed to do at the time. And, somewhere along the way, I just realized that this persona was holding me back, like it was kind of destroying me in some ways. Like I was pretty self-destructive in the sense that back then I was always fighting. I mean, we got in fights every week for years. Like we'd just go out and drink and fight, and we'd either pick up a girl and have sex, or we'd get in a fight. Like it was like one or the other, and that was it. And then once fame hit, and once the record blew up, and kind of all this like pressure and eyeballs on you, I realized real quick that people wanted to lawsuits. That lawsuits started flying. Like, if you go fighting every week now, you're going to have lawsuits. And people just wanted to pick a fight with you to start shit, to do stuff like that. And it was like, oh wow, like, and I didn't really know how to deal with that very well when it first started happening. Like it was like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And I kind of turned all that negative energy that I was fighting all the time. I kind of turned it on myself and started just fighting myself. I can be very self-destructive. Uh, became bulimic. I just got very self-destructive. Before it was like me fighting the world, and now it was me fighting myself. And so I ended up at my girlfriend, who's now my wife. She was telling me about therapy, and I had a kind of traumatic situation happen in the band, and so I was like, like I need to go do this, and I started doing the therapy, and in a lot of ways, they talk about peeling the onion, like you're kind of taking these layers of yourself away, and in a lot of ways, it peeled away what this image that I had created, and then I didn't know what I was, because I was like, well, fuck, what am I?
Right.
And
but
and I just
that's your authentic self that you
yeah,
get to.
right. But then it was like, but then I'm hanging out with all these people that I still used to hang out with, and so I just kind of I default back to that character, and I'd go into drugs and go back into boozing and whatever, and so over time it kind of I just got more comfortable in my skin. Some friends had to go by the wayside as a result of it, or just didn't like the person that I was turning into, and I was like, well, fucking, I don't care. And the more, I think the more, especially because when you're on stage, and you can probably relate to this, Eddie, because you perform, that the more the more you share of your own flaws, the more people connect with you. And the hardest thing is to get over the hump of being able to share those flaws, because it's like, fuck, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to embarrass myself. I don't want to share this fucked up story about my life or this crazy shit. But, in doing so, you free a part of yourself, and you free, your audience.
Because growing up, we're taught, a macho and you have to be this certain way, and that vulnerability, you're a pussy, but
Right.
vulnerability is a strength. And once you find that as a performer, then the door opens up and everything starts to come out, and then the audience can relate to it. You're your most authentic self. The best comedy, the best music, the best drama is the most vulnerable of it. And it's the people who are on the surface, who don't go deep down, and also at the same time I'm not here to please you kind of attitude. I'm here to do what I love. Then everyone starts drawing to you, and they can relate to you musically, mentally, physically.
Yeah. So glad, to back to your question. I mean, that was what happened, and then you just get to a point where, being in a band a lot of times is there's a lot of bullshit. Like there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of, okay, don't say this because you're gonna piss off the fan base, and don't do that because you're gonna piss off this part of your fan base, and I just got to a point where I was like, yeah, fuck, fuck everybody. Like, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm gonna make the music I make, and if you want to follow me on this journey that I'm going, then follow me.
Right, because the same thing with the friends that you lose from getting out of that other world. You might lose a couple of fans, but those are not the fans you want to begin with. You want a lot of fans, but you want them there for the right reasons.
Yeah, for sure.
What's going on pandemic with you? What's going on in California, in your area? How's it going?
We're on lockdown. We're all sheltered in place. I think they're going to start easing up a couple of the restrictions, but nothing dramatic. And it's not that bad. Like
I also wanted to say I don't want to take too much of it and put an emphasis, but I know there were a couple of losses in your family. My condolences. I know you went through hell these pandemic times.
Yeah, I mean, it's my aunt passed away from coronavirus. Yeah, so not shocking. She was already in a home and very in bad shape. But it just can't, when it hits you that close to your family, it's like, whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Because when it's on TV, it's a TV show.
right.
Yeah, but it was crazy that you went to the hospital. They didn't even want to test you. What the fuck, huh?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And they just sent me a bill for $300. I
Uh,
was like, motherfucker, I went to the hospital and you didn't even test me. Like, you want to charge me $300 for not testing me?
So what's next? What do you have coming up? Where?
I have another.
Oh, go ahead, Vlad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have another question, and
Sure.
that's something that kind of puzzles me, and I want to know how you're juggling those two. Like every time I see you with your peers, with musicians, or I listen to your podcast. You are so. By the way, guys, podcast is. No fucking regrets. It's amazing podcast. You should listen to this. But every time I listen to this, you're so genuine and you're so involved in other people's music and you're cheering about your talent, about their talents and about their music. And being for you, being a performer yourself, you have to be a little bit of a egotistic person to have this creativity and focus on yourself only. How are you managing all this? Because I thought for metal musician, you kind of have this feeling of superiority that you're doing better than everybody else, and that's what helps you to create music. Like, how are you managing those two?
That's a good question. Well, thanks for the shout out about the podcast. I appreciate that. Yeah, in fact, it was because of Vlad that I got the idea to interview Gary Holt. I was like, is there anybody? I was talking to Vlad just on Instagram DM. And I was like, anybody you want to hear on the podcast? He's like, Gary Holt would be awesome. I was like, fucking great idea. I'll hit up Gary right now. So that's.
Oh my God, I'm going to record this and send it to Gary. So he's gonna not going to be able to say no now.
Yes.
That you know, there was a few questions in there, but regarding the ego, yeah, I have a big ego for sure. I mean, like, I think that you got to have some kind of an ego to just get up on stage and fucking do what you do. Like, there's something that's got to push you. Insecurity, ego, whatever. I'd probably say it's more of, at least when I was younger, it was more of an insecurity to get up there and do it. But I've wanted to be on stage for as long as I can remember. Like, I was always trying out for school plays and school talent shows. Like, when I was in first grade, like, I just loved being on stage. And I was really introverted as a kid. Like, I hardly had any friends. I was very, um, you know, I was very introverted. And so I think that was a way to kind of, like, if I were to analyze my child self, it was a way to kind of force me out of this introvertedness by doing that kind of stuff. And I think that, but when it boils down to it, music has been this massive part of my life. I mean, I've been a fan of music and obsessed with music for my earliest memories. I used to take every single record that I had and learn every single word, so that if any song came on the radio, I could sing along to that song. I mean, I used to do that when I was doing that when I was 5 and 6 years old. And so, if I had to listen to the record 20 times in a row just to memorize every word, I would do it. And so, when it all boils down to it, I'm a fan of music. I'm still a fan to this day and when a band comes along with an amazing record or an amazing thing or just changes the fucking game, it fucking blows me away. Like, it's what life is all about. Like, that's the shit that I live for. Like, when it's like the band comes around and just drops something so fucking game changing, you're like, holy shit, that's ridiculous. And for me, kind of going back to the Bay Area thrash thing, that was that moment for me. Like, all of these bands were coming out of my city and nobody knew about them. And fucking, I could go see Gary Holt play to 500 people at the aquatic park in Berkeley, which is just some fucking park in Berkeley, and be like, oh my God, this is fucking sick. And like, try and copy his style. and try and copy all those bands, and you pay tribute to these bands by learning all those things, and somewhere in there you find your own way. You take Exodus, you take, when it comes to Machine Head, you take The Cure, you take Exodus, you take some Metallica, Slayer, and some Alice in Chains, and that's machine, and throw in some hip hop like NWA and Public Enemy, and that's Machine Head. Like all of those things. Without those things, so without Exodus, yeah, there's, half my riffs are gone. You know what I mean?
Well, that's good.
And
I mean,
so,
that's how, without Chuck Berry, you don't have, these other bands, and then the bands that beget the other bands, and now the bands that are come out who listen to Machine Head, now they're going to be interviewed in 10 years. They're going to go, yeah, if it wasn't for Machine Head, and running down the street to go see them in this little 300-seat venue in Fremont, or playing
right,
at a party,
the
something
backyard
like
party, yeah.
yeah, it works out pretty good.
But
So
as far as the superiority thing, though, like, I think that's I never feel like that, like I never am up, like I've never gotten up on stage and been like, I'm superior to you.
yeah,
I mean, like it's never. I know some bands that do, and I know who you're talking about, but, but it's for me, it's, if there was ever a drive, that drive was to um, blow you away. I wanted to be the only band that, if I was opening for somebody, I wanted to be the only band that you remember. Like when we were opening for Pantera, when we were opening for Slayer, when we were opening for Metallica, my entire mindset walking on stage is I want to blow them off the fucking face of the earth. Like I want to crush them into dust. And whether I succeeded or not, that was for the audience to decide, not for me to decide. It was for them to decide. But that was my mindset. And like I could get off stage and then just go have a beer and drink and hang out and have fun. But that was, to me, what it was. The only band I wanted anybody to remember walking off stage was Machine Head at
right.
all
And that
times. And now when we headline,
yeah,
what's
that
that?
superiority thing doesn't fit in that. It's more that vulnerable thing you talked about earlier, is where that you bring your power from your vulnerability, and then people will never forget you.
Yeah. And so, that's always been what it's been about for me, like that, and just making a connection, to me, like the best high that I get isn't, I mean, when I do a good job and I'm proud of myself, like I never walk off and be like, oh my God, dude, I just fucking crushed it. I never do that. Like in my head, I might go, fuck, like, pretty good one for you. Like most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm like, fucked up that part. Oh my
Yeah,
God, I
yeah,
fucking blew that. Oh, I fucking missed that thing. Oh, your voice cracked here. Like that's what's going through my head.
I
And I
know
don't say that to I don't say that to anybody, but that's what is going through my head. But to me, when we have that connection and the crowd just, you can just see that you're connecting deeper and deeper, and you just, this energy just is going up and up and up and up and up. Like that, to me, that's the ultimate right there. That's to me, because I know that they had the fucking best time of their life, and my job is done. Like I'm an entertainer. I'm pretty, in the scope of the world, like I'm pretty unimportant. But if I can give people, we play for 3.5 hours now. That's the length of our show. If I can give people 3.5 hours of fucking something they'll never forget, then my job is done.
you have gigs set up for the future.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
I know.
I'm supposed to be in Spain right now on tour, but that got canceled.
I just came back from Boston in my head.
In your head.
Yeah, it's in my book, but there's no gig.
Yeah, we've got dates rescheduled, and nothing would make me happier than for these dates to happen in October. And we are moving ahead as if they're going to happen, but in my heart of hearts, I don't think that they're going to happen. Like I just don't think that. I think this is. I think we're in an unprecedented time, and this is going to go on a lot longer than people think. And by everything that I've heard and everything that I've read, probably going to go on for at least 2 years. And even when it does come out of it, like it's going to be a completely different landscape, certainly for the music world and the live entertainment world. You know, I depend on thousands of people cramming into a hall and going crazy and circle pits and jumping. And, you know, like, how are we going to do that with 6 feet social distancing measures in place? Like, you can't do it.
I'm the same way. I have, 250 people in a tiny little club squeezed against each other, laughing and spitting their, spit
coronavirus
their virus on each other. But I believe we're going to have a future. I think, it's going to happen. We're all going to be out there.
Oh,
Are you working on a record? Are you working on an album while you're home?
Working on new music. Yeah. New music, the podcast, doing the, working on ways to get content out there. I think once some of these shelter in place restrictions ease up a little bit, we'll be able to do more like live in the studio type of stuff. And so yeah, it's going to be a different world though, man. Like in a lot of ways, I think it's going to be a better world once we're done here. I think it's going to be completely nothing at all like the world that we knew prior to the pandemic.
But, you should come to New York. We have birds singing on it's like, I'm in the jungle now. My street is empty. The birds are singing. The sky is clear. It's like, is this New York? Did I make a left turn somewhere else here?
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, there's a lot of things that's been cool about being on quarantine. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I go out and I don't live in the city. I live in a kind of a rural area. And, I see people like families like out riding their bikes now. Like, I never used to see that. People walking like walking their dogs, going, couples and moms and daughters and sons and dads and, like stuff that I never, ever saw before.
And even for your family, like you're notorious to take such a long tours, and now you're home like for 2 months, just focusing on your families. That must be a completely different experience, huh?
It's crazy because now they're always home. So like I'm just like, get out of here. I'm lucky that I've got this place that I can go to, So, but it has been, there's been some really, honestly, like my life, especially off the road, isn't that different. I work from home because I don't work for a company, so like I would work at home or I'd come here. So
yeah,
I never realized how much of a hermit I was until the whole world went on quarantine. I was like, oh,
well, thank God for everyone, because then you get to stay at home and write music and entertain us, which is great.
Yeah.
Please tell us.
I'm basically unemployed, and my wife's basically unemployed. So like we're having way more sex, and I'm like, okay, it's not
all right.
bad. Like,
the Earth is resetting. I was saying, because I live alone. I said, I haven't pleasured myself for a few days. Was it something I said? I'm the only person here. Please tell us all your social media places for people to go to, and the name of your podcast, and how people can get to that.
Podcast is everywhere, all the digital platforms, Spotify. Podcast is called No Fucking Regrets with Robb Flynn.
Spell it. Is there's no G at fucking? Is it Fuckin?
Yeah, I mean, if you just put in Robb Flynn on Spotify, it pulls it up. So
wonderful.
Like, what are I don't know what all of our handles for the socials are.
Yeah.
Just, if you look at Machine Head, you'll find it. It's all like, they're all verified accounts. So pretty easy.
I'm so happy to meet you. It was really a pleasure to do this. We really appreciate the time you spend with us. We didn't talk about veganism, and we'll do that another time. Maybe you'll be a vegan then. We know you're not.
I tell you what, I got to give a shout out to Vlad, because that food that you brought us, I've had your food several times now, and it's freaking awesome.
It's the best food. It's the best food. There's nothing.
Being in California, I started eating organic food probably like 97, like 98. Like I lived in Berkeley in 97. So at the beginning of Machine Head, I was in Berkeley, and so we were exposed to a lot of different types of food and a lot of different, and that kind of hearing about what organic farming is and what that type of stuff is, and so we went. I've been eating that way. I've been vegetarian and or vegan many times, probably 7 or 8 times in my life. And, you know,
You've had band members who are
I do, you know, the pepperoni pizza pulls me back. I have a very, very powerful weakness to pepperoni pizza. And so, you know, but I do back it. And anybody who is into it, I absolutely, you know, in fact, I eat probably half my meals are vegetarian and vegan, even to this day. You know, so I have a trippy way that I eat. I eat 6 times a day, small meals, and I eat 30 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat. And so I can have anything in there. So about half my meals are meat and rice or whatever, shit like that. And then the other half is like vegan protein powders and, you know, stuff like that. And or just vegan food that has high protein. And so I love it, man. Like I totally back it. I'm fully into it. And I think everybody should. I wish everybody would go down that route because
when this is over, this pandemic, you come to New York, we'll all sit together and have a great meal together and enjoy great food.
That'd be rad. That'd be awesome.
It was such a pleasure. Where OG Talk is the name of our show, but this is OG Chat. It's called Behind Closed Doors. Please tell your friends about it so that they can come to us. Subscribe when you come to our website, OG Talk NYC. You know, give us some critiques, tell us what you like and guests that you like in the future. Our producer is Rick Cannon. Our researcher is Sarah Tate. This whole thing is because of the wonderful Vlad Grinberg, who has the most incredible restaurant in the world in the East Village of New York, the Organic Grill. I'm Eddie Brill, and I'm happy to hang out with both of you guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your night.